Okay, Chairman.
We're going to call the zoning board of adjustment meeting to order for October 22nd. Thank you, Carlos, for going through that. That's made it much easier. If David, if you'd like to take roll, please.
Yes. Dawn Weber,
Here.
Omar Malik,
Here.
Adrian Hartman,
Here.
Larry Gersing,
Here.
and David Zobel is here.
Well, that's great. So Carlos went through basically the procedure that we will hear from everybody. We'll read the application that we have two tonight. Then we will hear from, I'll let Carlos do his presentation, then we'll hear from the board, or hear from the applicant, and then we'll discuss it and we'll close the public hearing and then talk amongst ourselves and take it to a vote, which we need for passing votes. Carla, or let's start
Chair,
off with,
before going into the hearings, once again, if I can go over some of the procedures just to make sure that the public is aware along with the applicants. So the city of Olivet, per state statute, has the Board of Adjustment. And the purpose of the board is to hear and decide appeals where there's an alleged error that's been made by one of the city officials. Two, to interpret provisions of how regulations within the zoning ordinance are applied when there's confusion with what we call a zoning map. Three is for public service corporations or public utilities. Four is when there's a non-conforming structure, meaning a structure that doesn't meet specific sections of the code. If it is destroyed or is partially destroyed by fire before it can get built in this exact same location, you would have to go back to the board. And then fifth, and most importantly, is to grant relief from a strict application of the zoning ordinance to a specific piece of property by issuing an area or a use variance as allowed herein. Now, a variance is when a property has a unique condition, not one typically found in the same zoning district, relating to its width, depth, shape of a lot, its topography, or some other exceptional circumstance that's not created by the owner that is so unique to this property that it warrants some relief from the city's common regulations that are applied to everybody else. Because that regulation would result in a practical difficulty and deprive the owner viable use of the property. It should not unreasonably affect adjacent properties. It should be within the spirit of the zoning ordinance overall, and make sure that public safety, welfare, and substantial justice is maintained, and be consistent to allow light, air, and all the other requirements that the city enforces through its zoning code. Procedures, you remember each appeal is held separately. So we'll have one for 48 Infield, and then after that is concluded, we'll have another one for 546 North Morrison Road. The process is that you would begin a public hearing for each. You would allow staff to do a presentation, followed by questions and answers, then the petitioner and the property owners, followed by questions and answers, and then allow for an opportunity for public comments. After the presentation, the board will close the public hearing and you'll deliberate amongst yourselves, and then the chairman will call for a motion. The motions are always a positive motion, so it's to grant the request, and then you vote on there, and you need 4 affirmative votes for a vote to be granted. Anyone wishing to speak, including myself, Jonathan, who are the staff, and the applicants, have to be sworn in, including those that would like to speak from the public side. So we ask when you are sworn in that you give your full name and your address for the record, and then go through the swearing in. So that's a quick summary on the process. Again, it looks like we have 7 attendees that are going to be looking to speak before the board. And if we're ready, Chairman, we can go ahead and proceed with the first public hearing.
okay. You're up, David.
This is application 1 for 48 Enfield Road. Property owner is Danny Plax and Allison Oswald. Petitioner is Lorene Fumagalli, I apologize about the pronunciation, Fumagalli and Lampe Inc. Zoning is single family residential district. Variance request is 5-foot variance from the required 25-foot front yard setback along Owlsbury Drive property line. Code section is 400.1592.B.4.D, open parentheses 1, close parentheses, front yard setback for detached garages and enclosed accessory structures of permitted accessory structures in residentially zoned districts. Being part of Article 16, accessory structures and uses, Chapter 400, zoning regulations of Title 4, land use of Olivet Municipal Code.
Thank you. Carlos,
Chairman, if I can get sworn in.
please.
Mr. Roper, do you want to get sworn in, Jonathan?
That's it. Yeah.
Sir, do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Okay. Chairman, I'm going to start at the beginning, and then I'll let Jonathan kind of go into the details of this. But again, the city's adopted regulations that govern accessory structures. Those have been adopted by the city council, and they are to be applied uniformly to all property owners within our community. The intent and purpose of regulating accessory structures in our city is to make sure that these structures complement the standards of the city's zoning district, design guidelines, address stormwater, and are consistent with our community design regulations. Most importantly, the council believes that these establish reasonable dimensions and bulk standards to preserve light, air, and open space. So these dimensional standards and bulk standards are what the council has felt are reasonable and are reflective of our community character and should be compatible throughout all properties within the city of Olivet. And then, of course, to address the impacts of stormwater generated on the sites and to ensure that the development of land occurs in a manner that protects and provides and promotes public health, safety, convenience, comfort, and general welfare for our residents. In the SR Single Family Zoning District, the city has adopted a minimum front yard setback that's based on how a subdivision has platted their subdivision or their indentures and have recorded in the county in there. So we have some subdivisions that have setbacks that are 50 feet. Some subdivisions have setbacks that are 30 feet and others that are 25 feet. And even some subdivisions that go way back that even are less than 25 feet. But under the current code criteria, the council has decided that in no event shall somebody have a front yard setback less than 25 feet, that is the bare minimum that the city would allow. So a property in Oak Estates will have a setback of 40 feet or 50 feet. And we'll see in these cases where some other subdivisions have lesser, but in no case has the council authorized that they be less than 25 feet. I'll let Jonathan now go into the details of the accessory structures in the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Whoops. Okay, for accessory structures, that's under the Chapter 400 article. And before I do, real quick, just so you know what we have in our packet here, details about this before you. You have, of course, the public hearing notice that Mr. Zobel has read, the affidavit, the 2 first pages, the notifications, which I'll mention a little bit later, the staff report that you have at the bottom of it, it says pages 1 through 13. So that talks in detail about what is before you, along with a lot of the images that you'll see this evening, along with the accessory structure. So if you, what's on the screen now is on your paper on page 9, and then it goes into the, as Carlos mentioned, the setbacks of the lot, as you just saw. And then we have the Board of Adjustment criteria, and there are the last few pages, just so you know that you have that if you ever want to look back at what we discussed earlier. The next packet we have was the petition and a quick statement for what they noted when they put in the petition, along with the plans attached, as well as the building permit denial by the city of Olivet and their application for that. So with that said, we classify accessory structures that are either detached garages or enclosed accessory structures when they're larger than 120 square feet. They are considered under B4 under section 400, 1592 accessory structures of chapter 400. And they, the size, which is not being disputed today, they have a certain size criteria, but we look at from, as Carlos mentioned, the front yard setback under the SR single family district, the setbacks on the accessory structures note that this should not be located, or an accessory structure should not be located in the front yard of this caliber. Oh, I'm sorry. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. And the findings on this, we find the property, subject property before you is 48 Enfield Road. It is a legal lot of record in the city of Olivet. It's part of lot 8 and 9 of this Chevy Chase subdivision. It's a corner lot that abuts Enfield Road to the west, which creates a front yard, the first 50 feet of the property, and Aylesbury Drive to the north, which has a 25-foot setback there. That means the rear of the property is to abutting the perpendicular side in Aylesbury Drive, and abutting the Enfield Road, it's the side yard setback there. From St. Louis County records, we find that it's been under the same ownership since 1996. It's zone SR single family residential zoning district. It's a legal non-conforming lot because the width, how staff measures, the lot width is where the front building line along Ingle. You measure along the 50-foot building line from property line to property line, and it did not meet the 100-foot width. So it's considered the legal non-conforming lot, which you could still build, of course, on. It just takes you through a different process sometimes. The required front yard setback is, again, on Aylesbury, 25 feet. The existing home is a legal non-conforming with this front yard. The home is 7.2 feet from the between the property line on Aylesford and the house. The proposed detached garage is governed by Article 16 accessory structures and uses of Chapter 400 in the zoning code. The proposed setback from Aylesbury for the detached garage is 20 feet. The required setback, again, the Aylesbury Drive setback is 25 feet for that front. And you have before you in your packet the denial letter for this, which is dated August 27th. Next slide, please. And the jurisdiction of the board, they, as Mr. Trejo mentioned, they have the jurisdiction under this case to grant relief by the strict application of the zoning ordinance to a specific piece of property by issuing an area or use variance, in this case, area variance as allowed herein. And the Board of Adjustment may issue an area variance only upon finding that the property has a unique condition, not one typically found in the same SR zoning district in this case, related to the width, depth, shape of the lot, its topography, or other exceptional circumstances not created by the owner and applicant. The strict application of zoning ordinance would result in practical difficulties as distinguished from a mere inconvenience, which would deprive an owner of the reasonable use of the property, and the variance would not unreasonably affect adjacent property owners. And it would observe the spirit and intent, as Mr. Trejo went over, of the zoning ordinance of the accessory structures and uses. And there's another section, section C, which you can see that on page 13 of your staff report, which just talks about impairing adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent properties, and some other things that really this shouldn't have to worry about, like increasing congestion on the street, which it's a detached garage, but with one or public and increased public danger of fire, which in this case it wouldn't. So we don't have to worry about some of those. Next slide, please. This is the location map. So this is the Chevy Chase subdivision that you see before you, where you have everyone should know Old Bottom Road and Price Road there. So it's just in the southwest quadrant there. Next slide, please. And this is the aerial map with 48 Enfield, where you can see Aylesbury on the going to the north there, and Enfield Road to the left of that star there. And as you can see, where that white car is, and to the that would be the rear yard. That's the general location of the detached garage over that off-street parking area there. And it also goes just into the grass just a little bit. Next slide, please. Here is a street view taken from Aylesbury looking east. So the garage, there's the current off-street parking area. That whole thing right there, it would get paved over to a driveway into the garage where that tree is at currently. And behind those trees will be the detached garage. Next slide, please. And this is just an area view from the street where that current parking pad is. You can see just right behind the tree. And that's where probably at the end of the dumpster where that proposed garage would be. Next slide, please. The zoning map of the city of Olivet, which shows the land uses that are approved by the city. The property is zone SR single family, along with all the properties around it as well. Next slide, please. Here's the site plan where you can actually see so you have Aylesbury Drive, the plans that they submitted where they actually have the 25-foot line, which is a line going at a slant and red. And that's the building line that is from the Aylesbury property line. And they're over that corner piece by about 5 feet. And staff will just note on here, and it's on one of your pages on your staff report, on page 5, where we just want to know, just knowing, where usable spaces are within your property and other setbacks that this might have to abide by. Just on the top of the garage, a detached garage, that's considered the rear back there. So the detached garage would need to remain 10 feet away from that line, which it does comply with. From the area to the right of that, it would be the side yard, and they're nowhere close to the other side yard. So we're really not, they have usable space where it says like lot 9 there. There is space there, and we'll let, when we hear from the petitioner, talk about their choice to put it where they did. There is green space back there, staff would say. So that was one of the reasons in conversation that, well, there's a green area back there that's the garage right now is mostly going over pavement. So staff wants to point that out. And notice that the house also, so the existing house footprint, as noted, is about 7.2 feet from the property line. So it's set back about 7.2 feet, and that's a legal non-conforming structure right there. So if they wanted to, let's say, add on to the left or the right of that, they would have to go before you for a variance, same as they're doing today. Or if they wanted to go up to a 3rd story, let's say, but it's already a 2-story house there. So that's a legal non-conforming structure. Have the next slide, please. And items for the record, the building permit application was received on July 7th, 2020. building permit application denial letter, which is both the application and denial letter within your packet, was denied on August 27, 2020. The Board of Adjustment application, which is also in your packet, received on September 10th, 2020, including attachments. And the public hearing notice, as Mr. Zobel read earlier, the affidavit is here, along with the, and that was published with the St. Louis County on October 6, 2020. We have the staff report, the parcel list of addresses that staff sends out to at least 185 feet. The PowerPoint before you, and the City of Olivet Code of Ordinances, including Chapter 400, regulations and the zoning map of the City of Olivet. And next slide, please.
At this point, if there's any questions.
What are we waiting on?
At this point, Chairman, if the commission has any questions of staff?
Thank you. Anybody out there have questions for Carlos or Jonathan?
None.
Carlos, is there any unique conditions on this lot?
Chairman, not in accordance with what's defined under the zoning ordinance. There is an existing single-family house in a single-family residential district. The information, as you see here, provided in terms of their survey, you know, it doesn't distinguish that there are any unique topographical conditions. Corner lots are always different, but we have lots of corner lots and all of that.
Yeah.
And again, you know, the front part of the property along Infield Road is only 72 feet wide. A typical lot in all of that should be 100 feet wide along the street. But probably a majority of the lots in Chevy Chase are under 100 feet in width. So most of them probably are right in there around 80 plus or minus 10 feet.
Thank you. Any other questions for Carlos or Jonathan at this time from the board?
Actually, I'll add to that just one. The petitioner did submit right after the application on page 2, they did submit their statement to the board. That might explain that too.
I did have a follow-up question. Is the shape of the lot unique here in that it's kind of not, I'm looking at page, what is this, page 5? And it looks like that one, there's a triangle there in a different orange color. And it looks like because of the way the setback line is drawn, it's kind of cutting the property at, you know, it's not like, it is an oddly shaped lot. I mean, it's not, I mean, maybe, I don't know about other lots, but so it may not be that oddly shaped, but it's not like a true rectangle type of a lot. So it seems like that because of the way the lot is shaped, that's why we're having that encroachment over the setback line. Am I not, is that not accurate, or tell me if I'm off base?
It is trapezoidal, so it does have a unique shape.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, there is 70 feet along the western side, which is infield, and about 118 on the eastern side, which is considered the rear. But when you look at, and again, this is up, if there's something that we're missing, you know, there is that much property back here to shift the building and be out of the setback.
Okay.
But that is where, again, based on what I see here, I don't see what is prohibiting that to happen. It is the petitioner's role to note if there's some, you know, to show evidence that there's something here that is not making it feasible, and that we'll hear from them.
Right.
on
Well,
there.
yeah, if we can enter this in evidence, and then I'd like to hear from the applicant, please, if they could be sworn in.
Mr. Malik, does that answer your question okay? or-
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes, Allison Oswald is here on the line. She is the homeowner.
Can she be sworn in? And
Yes. So what I would ask is if there is anybody else, I thought I saw somebody else, anybody that would like to speak that is part of the application in there, if you can raise their hand, any neighbor or resident that wants to speak, whether for or against the petition, if you can hold off till after the owner and the owner's representative speak. So I have two people that raised their hand, and if you can note your names and your address, and again, the relationship to this petition should be as a property owner or representing the property owner as part of the construction.
Hi, my name is Dave Lampy with Fumagalli and Lampy, and I'm the architect along with Lori Fumagalli that submitted the presentation materials.
great, can you please be sworn in?
Sure.
Is there anybody else, Mr. Lampy?
No,
Okay. And then,
Sir, do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Talk to us.
Well, I think the one thing that was pointed out in the letter that was submitted by my business partner that was that the requested location of the proposed two-car garage lines up with the side, and we do show that on the plan, which is in front of us. And one of the things was that with the existing house being so close to the road, and by pushing the garage back further behind the 25-foot setback, there was a concern that the view out of the back of the house where the majority of the windows are from the kitchen and the dining, it just would be totally blocked. So we decided to shift it forward. It would actually increase the green space and reduce the impermeable coverage of the drive that's there. And then there's also a few other examples along the street where garages are pushed forward. But our primary reasoning is that the view, which it's in the letter, to line up the front of the garage with the side of the house, that gives us a little bit more of a view for the client. And at the same time, it does increase the green space.
I understand. Is anybody have any questions for the applicant? You should speak now. So basically, it's about the view. If you moved it 5 feet back, there's the space is there, so you don't need a variance, but it's just gonna block their view and not as much backyard.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of an issue with the grades, the topography coming off of that rear porch on the existing house, and then how we would get into the garage. There is some steps that will be there, and actually the back of the garage You know, it's partially a retaining wall, partially a framed wall out of the ground. So the further back we do push that garage, the higher the retaining wall goes. And I think there is something in the, at least the building code, where we have to watch an 8-foot overhead clearance from the top of the walk to the underside of the soffit or the eave. And we've maintained that so far.
Carlos, what is he saying?
That I'm not sure. Again, we haven't reviewed these for any compliance with the building codes. Because that we're trying to address more of the zoning issues.
Got it.
So if there was something that was referenced, I don't know the immediate answer. We'll
Okay.
go based on, you know, Mr. Lampe, and I'm assuming you're registered architect.
My partner is, yes, I'm
Okay.
in business with her.
Any other question, David? Do you want to ask?
Yeah, Mr. Lampe,
Yes.
what considerations have gone into pivoting the garage such that the front face of the garage lines up with the building setback, so that the garage would be at a bit of an angle from the existing house, but still conform to the building setback line?
As far as rotating it to align with the setback line,
Correct.
I think there is a utility easement there. And by doing that, it would be the rear corner of that. I'm gonna say, based on my site plan, which is on the construction drawings, it would be the southeast corner. That would rotate, and that would be at or over the 10-foot utility easement, and we would not have a lot of clearance between the existing house structure and the garage. So separation between the house and the garage was a concern as well.
Just to clarify, the utility, the 10-foot utility easement, based on the survey information provided, is split between your property and the neighbor's property, correct?
Correct.
So it's 5 feet up to the stashed line.
And where your cursor is kind of going on there, there is an existing fence, which I believe is the client's, but I'm not sure who erected that, but it's an existing fence.
I do have a question. Why couldn't the garage be pushed back to, how close could it get to that utility easement? If it was just, what is this? Would that be north, moving it toward the utility easement? That would sort of-
If you move it towards the utility easement, you would be moving it east.
Okay, east. So if it moved east, I don't know how many feet that would be. How close, or can it actually approach that utility easement? And then how much of that corner that's over the variance would actually disappear?
So from the face of the side of the garage to the utility easement, it is 5 feet. There's 5 feet of space. You know, you could shift it, I would say 4 feet, you know, at least, just to give us a little bit of a fudge factor on that.
Yeah, is there any reason why it is placed where it's placed from the house, if it can't be just pushed back?
I'll chime in here. Under the accessory code, that's the rear, that darker line, just above the 10 is the line. It needs to be 10 feet back, and you see that red arrow that says 10 just above that. So by accessory, they would need a variance from you guys in order to do going it that way. So they're limited by code.
Take that. I prefer that.
That's correct. There's a 10-foot rear setback on the existing garage.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? No?
Question, Chairman, one of the things, we have not received anything from the subdivision as of yet.
Okay.
Mr. Lampy,
Yes.
we haven't received anything from the subdivision as of yet.
I don't believe so. From the trustees or,
When did they approach them, or when did you or your client approach the subdivision?
I don't have that information.
It's kind of critical. I think it's important for the board to know. I know they have an active subdivision. I'm not sure what the holdup would have been.
It's Alison here, the owner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I chip in here? Do I have to swear
You're
in?
sworn in, yes. Get sworn in, please.
Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. So I have been in touch, Danny and I have been in touch with the immediate neighbors that their view would be changed by having the garage there, and they have all given their consent and blessing for it and have emailed the Chevy Chase Board of Trustees. There was a communication glitch because we'd approached the trustees and we knew about the garage, and then we knew that we needed this variance. And so I thought it was going to be variance first, and then we go back to the trustees. But I was in touch with one of the trustees today, and I mean, they haven't got all together and reviewed it, but he, at least they said that they didn't have a concern with it. So that was verbally given to me. I haven't got anything in writing from them, but I've been talking to them today, and I have in writing from my neighbors that think that they're all okay with this.
Do you have, are you submitting those as evidence, or?
I will if I need to, yeah.
Yes,
To, who do I send those to?
either Jonathan or myself, because they become part of the public record.
Okay, I can forward, they were emails, I'll forward them on to you. And then just, I guess I just want to say, I would love if we could have the view from our kitchen onto our green space. That means a lot. When you're going into your considerations about this space.
Any questions for the applicants? Anybody else have any questions? All right, having none, I'd like to close the public
Well,
hearing. And,
Chairman, and
oh, is there anybody else in the audience that has to?
if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak regarding this application, if you can show your hand. And given some of the delays, Chairman, we ask that you give it at least a couple of seconds just to make sure.
Okay. There we are.
Seeing none, Chairman, it doesn't look like there are
Right.
not any public comments.
So let's close the public hearing and let's talk amongst ourselves, shall we? Guys, what do you think? I don't know how to do this like in order if people want to just, but I'd like to hear from everybody and get your take, please.
Agreed.
All right. Go. Who's going? Dawn,
Are we just among ourselves? I still see, okay.
talk to us. What do you
Okay,
think?
So I first, since these terms are new to me here, I just want to understand when it comes to these variances and how it's decided in each neighborhood, what the setback number would be. What are the like issues, or what do we consider when like this 25-foot setback is made because of, is it stormwater? Is it utilities? Like what are the criteria that determines how the footage is determined for each side of the property? And versus easement, because I know actually I have an easement on our property, and I think that has to do with the utility in there, but that's different than variance, right?
Correct. Chairman, if I
Okay.
can answer that?
Yeah,
Yes.
just so I can understand why, this 5-foot encroachment on the variance, like what are the real issues that this could pose?
Well, the setbacks, which are the distance from structures to a property line, are established through our zoning ordinance as adopted through the city council. And the zoning ordinance is intended to reflect the community's character. And in this case, the council recognized that, we have a variety of different subdivisions, some with greater front yards than others,
Right?
and wanted to respect that. And therefore, the way the code is written is that it's set that within your subdivision boundaries, you have to maintain the recorded setback, front yard setback, because that is reflective of your neighborhood, of your community in there. In cases where there is not one, the council's kind of adopted that in no case will a house or structure be less than 25 feet from a roadway. And again, that's to reflect, the community's character or so.
Okay.
All our subdivisions are different. We have some very dense subdivisions like Chevy Chase. It's a very urban subdivision to high acres where they're over 1 acre or close to 2 acre lots, and there's a lot of space. The goal of the front yard setback within our ordinance is to recognize the character of these existing subdivisions, but to place a limitation that in no case should they be less than 25 feet. That is just to allow, to have a street frontage or appearance that's reflective of what we would like the community to be.
Okay. So it's more of an aesthetic thing, would you say?
You can, yes.
Okay. So if we're considering this property, this is not the front of the house, right? If I'm understanding this, this is the side of the house, and there's already an existing concrete driveway there.
Correct. Or any time a lot abuts a street, the side there, each side that abuts the street is considered a front yard.
Okay.
It's not based on where the front door is,
Okay.
or where the driveway door is that 2 front yards are applied. And that's one of
Because
the
of corner
unique things
lot.
about corner lots, corner
Okay.
lots. And usually corner lots will be, because acknowledging this criteria, are usually a little bit wider than internal lots. Like you'll see in this case, this lot
It's
is-
narrow in the front, but in the back it's wider. It's
correct.
definitely an odd shaped here.
Right.
And we have about a third, maybe a quarter of the house that's already in the setback.
Correct.
Yeah, there's quite a bit in the setback there, right? So
So
if this was a rectangular shaped property, then that garage would no problem clear the 25 feet variance. If you looked at the longest side of the,
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. If you didn't have the odd shape, we wouldn't have a problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And then we satisfy the variance code. I think all 5 parts.
David?
No, I mean, if we move it back 5 feet, I got 25, roughly, well, it's 26, but 25 by 5, 125 square feet. I'm not a math major. we're going to lose of green space, and stormwater management is always a concern in this municipality from past experiences. It is an odd shaped lot. A good portion of the house is already in the setback area. Yeah.
My feeling on it is if they could still move it over 5 feet and not ask for a variance, the one thing that they would lose is a little bit of their yard and a little bit of a view, which really isn't a hardship to say. I want to have a hardship because I want a bigger backyard and I want to have a better view from my window. So I would tend to say to move it that 5 feet so they don't need a 5-foot variance. And there is the room to do it. It's not like there's a building there or something, or, you know, there's something that's causing them not to be able to meet this variance or not to need a variance. So that would be my vote, but I'm just one.
Sure. Well, and to your point, I mean, there is a lot 8 as I'm looking at the screen right now. I mean, that's a whole big part of the yard right there. So.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand. What is that lot 8, lot 9? What is that their property, lot 8?
I believe so.
Yes,
Oh, so they have an additional green space that's there.
Right.
It's a lot, but they're a double lot, I guess. Is that what this is?
that is correct. The original lots that were platted, they own one full, one lot 9 and part of lot 8. So it's looked at as one parcel, but based on the original legal description, and this is common in Chevy Chase, where the property lines have shifted.
And is that all green space, that
Yes.
lot 8?
Mhm.
I guess I understand where they're coming from, because the staircase, I don't know if I can, in that, well, in the drawing, looks like they're building something, right? A proposed covered porch with stairs.
It looks like it's already there too.
That
I mean,
already
from the
there.
one photo,
Oh.
it would be like you're walking down the stairs right into a wall. It would be
Yeah.
kind of nice to walk downstairs into green space, not
You're
take up
right.
permeable space. We have non-compliance on an irregular shaped lot. I think the house is probably more marketable, better off. You know, which would you rather prefer and buy? I mean, I know that we don't really necessarily compare about concern with value, and we're looking at compliance, but I mean, how would you like to come down your stairs? Into a wall or into green space? I mean, should we preserve green space? Is that a priority? To me, I think to some extent, yes. And we have a very small portion that's non-compliant, while we have the home that's by and large more non-compliant.
Right, and also that's cement anyway, that little bit that would be over the variance, that's already, it's sort of constructed on already with the driveway. So
Exactly.
I'm sort of thinking just this 5 feet, I really don't, because it's behind the house and because there's already a concrete driveway there, and the way the pictures look, I think this small part would be very not very obvious, to say the least.
Inconsequential almost.
Yeah,
It's like it's a small piece of. It'd be a different story if half the garage were in there, but like just a corner of it that fits and lines up with the other side of the house. You know, sort of like talking about turning it catty corner. I mean, that's just odd looking. I mean, I think it's a bit more appealing looking that it lines up with the house.
It geometrically looks more conforming, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I understand where the homeowner is coming from, and I'm also thinking about how much this is intruding upon the zoning. But because it is really, I want to say minor, if that's, in the sense that it's not half the building, it's 5 feet, or I don't even know how much that is. I know it's 5 feet into the variance, but I don't know how many feet that the length of that building is. But it just seems quite small in the scheme of things.
Anybody else comments? So with none, how about we get a motion?
Yeah, I'd motion to approve that. I agree with, what Dawn was saying. I mean, I'd put that up for motion for approval, given all the things that she stated. And, I think Omar, sort of seemed to be on the same page with a regular shaped lot too. And I know we're all sensitive to permeable space.
Adrian, for the formality, I'll ask if you can read the motion. It's either on the screen or within your packet.
I motion to grant a variance from the required 25-foot front yard setback along the north property line as required under section 400-1592B4D1, front yard setback being part of article, what is that? Roman numerals. I'll just go XVI. I don't know my Roman numerals that well. Accessory structures and uses of chapter 400 zoning regulations of title 4, land use of the Olivet Municipal Code to allow a 5-foot encroachment as illustrated in the plans before the board on October 22nd, 2020.
Second, anybody? Omar, second.
Second. I had to go off mute. Second.
All right.
Okay, so here's where I'll call the roll, and if you can
Good, all right.
let me know either yay
Carlos,
to
good.
grant the motion or nay to oppose the motion as read. So Mr. Hartman,
Yay.
Ms. Weber,
Yay.
Mr. Malik,
Yay.
Mr. Zobel,
Yay.
and Mr. Gerstein.
Nay.
That was yay?
No, it
No?
was a nay, but he passes. Yay.
The motion, given that there was 4 affirmative votes, the motion is granted. The next step, of course, will be continuing on through the permitting process, Mr. Lampe and Allison. And there, so if there is any other questions. And being none, Mr. Lampe, Allison, I'm going to move you back to the attendees, and then we're going to go on to the next one.
David, you're up again.
All right. You ready?
Yeah, do it.
This application 2, property address is 546 North Warson Road. The property owner is Saji and Sindhu Jacob. Petitioner is the same. Zoning is single family residential district. Variance request is 10-foot variance from the required 15-foot side yard setback along the south property line. Code section is section 400.1592.B.4.D, open parentheses 2, close parentheses, side yard setback for detached garages and enclosed accessory structures of permitted accessory structures in residentially zoned districts, being part of Article 16, accessory structures and uses, Chapter 400, zoning regulations of Title 4, land use of the Olivet Municipal Code.
Thank you. And Carlos, Jonathan, you guys are sworn in already, right?
Yes, both Mr. Roper and myself are sworn in, and I'll go ahead again to kind of provide a recap again of regarding accessory structures that the council has adopted standards for accessory structures. Those standards are intended to complement the city's zoning districts, our design guidelines, address stormwater management, and our community design criteria. The standards, all those dimensional standards are established are to provide reasonable dimensional and bulk standards to preserve light, air, and open space to be reflective with our community and our community values. These standards are also, again, to address stormwater that's generated on these sites and to ensure that the orderly development of land occurs in the city of Olivet that protects the public health, safety, convenience, comfort, and general welfare of our residents. In the SR single family zoning, we have front yard setback requirements, and we also have side yard setback requirements that you'll see that are listed here. And on lots that are in excess of 60 feet, the required setback is 12% of the lot width, And in this case, I believe the subject property is over 60 feet in width, and the required setback is 15 feet on both the north and south property lines. And we'll get into the details of the plans a little bit. I'll let Jonathan go over the specifics. He's dealt with the petitioners and the applicants on the submission. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to, if not, I'll let Jonathan continue on.
Thank you, sir. And for accessory structures, again, this goes actually to the same section, section 450-92, where on a lot that is, if you have an accessory structure that's over 120 square feet, then you are required to have the side yard setback of the lot. In this case, the side yard setback under 450-92 for a larger building, it's at least to go, what can be administratively approved would be if the accessory structure is no more than 5 feet beyond the principal structure being the house, so some part of that, and may not extend into the side yard setback. So in this case, it is 15 feet. I also will note that the Planning and Community Design Commission that would normally hear, like if it wasn't 5 feet beyond the principal structure, let's say if it was 7 feet or 8 feet, they can hear those types of variations. But in this case, they are with a setback of 15 feet, and then asking for 5 feet, not only 5 feet past the principal structure, but also 5 feet from the property line. We decided that was really a Board of Adjustment issue to look at the reasoning behind that. Next slide, please. And well, I will also note about the accessory structure. So they are applying for a 396 square feet. It's about 22 feet in length and 18 feet in width. And it's a little, just about 15.5 feet. And they have a little, a second, we don't measure from, they have some ornamental features on top, but we measure from the roof peak to the ground, and anything over 15 feet, which is 15.5, would also have to go to the Planning and Community Design Commission if the board even were to grant, but we're here to look at the side yard setback. 546 North Worcester Road, it's a legal lot of record. The property extends both into Creve Coeur, City of Creve Coeur, and Olivet. It's located off Worcester Road, where if you're driving south on Worcester Road, south of Olive Boulevard, some of the properties on the all the properties on the east, on the right side of the road would be Creve Coeur. On the west side of the road, there is some houses could possibly be in Creve Coeur, while their backyards on Olivet. The city, St. Louis County Assessor's Office identifies both lots with 2 different locator numbers, or like taxing for their tax records. But the city recognizes the lot as a whole. It's been under the same ownership according to St. Louis County since 2007. It's zone SR single family residential district. The required setback of the lot is 15 feet based on 124 foot width. The proposed structure is considered detached, under the code, it's under detached garages or enclosed accessory structures. Different than a shed. A shed that's 100 is considered 120 or less. Anything above that fits into this category. And they are governed by Article 16, the Accessory Structures and Uses Code of Chapter 400, and the Olivet Municipal Code. The side yards in the lot are to the north and to the south. On the Worcester Road side, that's the front yard, and towards the east is the rear property. The detached structure is going to be, they're proposing it to be 5 feet from the property line on the southern end. And you have in your packet as well, of course, your affidavits that you received, the notifications to the properties at least 185 feet around. Your staff report, which notes more of the stuff we did go over, some of the specifics, the codes there. Along, you have the setback table on page 4. Page 5, on your staff report, you have the colors of where the setbacks are located. In this case, the side yard setbacks are in the red color, along with the yellow or the orange. That's the encroachment part. You have different picture elements, such on page 6 of 14, where you have this is where it exists, what exists there today, which is a small greenhouse. So relatively where that is placed, there's probably about 5 feet beyond that. That's where their property is. And also one of the items that were submitted, which is on page 6, or also in your staff, on your plan set and larger, would be as a note, screening of vegetation for screening on there. Staff would also note that on here, they do note bamboo as screening, and usually staff doesn't get into the specifics of which and what type of landscaping, but in this case, bamboo is a super spreader. The root system's kind of super spread, so if the board were to approve as is, it would be a good idea to either approve it with some type of landscaping screening, or if you want to be specific with their bamboo, to note staff would suggest the Missouri Botanical Garden information about containing unwanted spread bamboo. They have a resources online that talk about what to do to keep it from spreading. So that's if the board were to go ahead with an approval. That's what staff wants to just note about that component of that. So finally, there are other pictures in the staff report. There's at the end the accessory code and the Board of Adjustment code as well. Then you also have the staff, the application for the building permit, along with one of the emails, and what came in earlier that staff did forward to you guys via email were the both a approval letter from a neighbor to as the property is very long, one of the houses up Warson gave approval to it, and second property abutting where the greenhouse was, if you recall, the property right there did send a letter not in favor of this here. So
Not in favor?
Not in favor, sir.
And we'll have all this for evidence, please, right?
Yes,
Thank
and they were emailed to you. I'm sorry, we got them a little bit later after the packets, so
Okay.
that's why they're not included in your packets. We can get to the next slide, please. And just note both the neighbor and the petitioner are on, so you could hear from them.
Jonathan,
Yes, sir.
the neighbor, so there's the 2 neighbors submitted letters. One was in favor and one was not in favor.
Yes,
The
sir.
Which neighbor is on the,
The one not in favor.
makes sense.
Yeah. The board has a jurisdiction to grant relief by the strict application of the zoning ordinance to a specific piece of property by issuing an area variance. In this case, it would be an area variance as allowed herein. Get to the next slide, please. And we look for that unique condition, one not typically found in the same zoning district, relating to the width, depth, or shape of the lot, its topography, or other exceptional circumstances not created by the owner. The strict application of the zoning ordinance would result in practical difficulties as distinguished from a mere convenience, which would deprive an owner of reasonable use of the property, and it would not unreasonably affect adjacent properties. It would observe the spirit and intent of the ordinance and satisfy the criteria of subsection C, which again can be found on just about the last page of your staff report, which talks about impairing an adequate supply of light near to adjacent properties, or other items such as congestion of public streets or fire. So go to the next slide, please. The property is located just on the North Worcester Road, but on the south side of Olive, between Lisa Drive, which falls to the south, and Kentham Drive to the north, although access is taken off North Worcester Road. And staff will just note, just so you know, where the letters of approval from the neighbors and disfavor are at 534, which is just to the bottom right, bottom left of the square, is the approval letter. 8 Lisa Drive did submit the letter and not in favor of that. And the accessory structure would be relatively, if you see where the 546 is at on that property, just bring it around the property line. It's around in that area there. So just so you're aware. Next slide, please. Oh, and this is the property here where with the star on it, and you can kind of see where that purple line crosses. On the left side, that's Creve Coeur. On the right side, that's all of that. And you can see where that existing greenhouse is, just a little bit there. We'll note, you know, some surrounding conditions. That's it abuts basically rear yards, so it abuts the property on Lisa Drive's rear yards, as well as drives off to the north. Kentham Drive, number 30 is the backflip to the rear there. So it's an interior lot. Next slide, please. And this is just a Google view from Warson's on the bottom road. So, and you can see the neighboring pool. So somewhere in that tree area is going to be, that's where the detached garage would be, or detached building would be. And this is another view of the house from the Lisa Drive looking north, where you could basically see that greenhouse just beyond those trees where that exists today. So that would be roughly 5 feet from the property line. So that's existing, but and greenhouses today are allowed to be up to 5 feet from a property line. There are regulations for that under the accessory code as well. And the official zoning is the SR single family zoning district in the city of Olivet. Staff also will note we did look up Creve Coeur zoning regulations, which actually was just about the same as ours. It's a single family zone B, and they also follow a setback. I think the setback standard is about 15 feet for Creve Coeur as well, interesting enough. So we agree on some things. So next slide, please. And this is the site plan and what was submitted by the petitioner. You can see just 2 elevations from the sides, which actually those 2 elevations did change, I believe, your packet. I apologize. We got a new elevation and we're not really here much for the elevation, but I just want to note they did add, and it should be in your plan set. The longest paper attached here is the updated drawings of that at the bottom, where you can see that they added the skylights and the ornamental element at the top, along with the bamboo is what they sketched in there. So looking at the property, you could also note, and on page 5 of your staff report, where, so I'm looking at the property, and on the screen you see the right where that black square is. Oh no, I'm sorry. If you go up to the site plan, zoom in on the site plan, where the black rectangle is where they're proposing. That's 5 feet from that south side property line. You can see there is a faint dashed line. That means the 15-foot setback. So they have to be 15 feet from the north side and the south side. As an accessory building, they have only a 10-foot setback from the rear, and they have to be behind the front yard building setback. So in this case, we're looking at the side, and they're encroaching 5 feet into the setback there. And you can see where, you know, again, the zoning and where everywhere that's basically in white behind the house, they could put this structure. So Staff would also note they did submit the contours on the site plan, and it looks like there's just about from the north side to the south side, it probably slopes about 5 feet, and that's over roughly 124 feet. So the grade does slope one way. Yeah, it would only be staff's opinion if I said if it sloped, if it's a big slope or not, but that would just be staff's opinion. It slopes 5 feet over 124 feet. So, and they're on the low end there. Next slide, please. It's a close up. And the items for the record that staff wants to note. Before I get to those, just want to note the what's not on the screen, just the letters that the Board of Adjustment has received, including the approval letter from the property off Warson and the not in favor letter from 8 Lisa Drive, as long as the building permit for the application received on September 10th, which is in your packet here. The building permit denial letter dated September 14th, which is in here, and the Board of Adjustment application received on September 28th. The affidavit, as Mr. Zobel read, and the posting of the lists that we addressed within 185 feet notified, or at least 185 feet. The staff report that's dated October 22nd, 2020, including the attachments. The PowerPoint presentation that you see before you, and the City of Olivet Code of Ordinances, including Chapter 400 zoning regulations, the Olivet Code, and the zoning map, Olivet zoning map. And at this point, staff is open for any questions or discussion by the Board of Adjustment. Also, the neighboring properties are here again, and the petitioner is here as well.
Right. Any questions for Carlos?
Yes.
And
Jonathan, I guess Jonathan or Carlos, how do we know how tall this existing sun house, greenhouse is?
We would have to ask the petitioner. We don't. No, we don't.
Okay.
There's a picture, but I don't know if that even helps.
Sure. Next question. Do the plans specify whether this proposed structure has a gutter?
I do not.
It doesn't look
I would
like
only
it.
speculate, but I do not believe. It was not included at this time, so I would only speculate to say yes, but it probably would, but that's speculation, so I don't know.
Okay. Next question. If we are able to discuss the concept of bamboo and or whether we're going to require concrete footings to prevent it from spreading, do we have authority or guidance to specify other types of vegetation?
Staff really, no, it's just as if you were, City of Olivet really doesn't get into the vegetation. Our Code of Ordinances really doesn't specify on residential lots that there really are no standards. We really don't get into it, but we just want to make sure that we get on the record that we have some kind of control for the bamboo, only because that can become a nuisance issue. Sure. Which then once it does, the building code would take care of plant spreading it that way, but we kind of want to get past that before we can.
Fourth question, I'm sorry to my colleagues here. Do we know what the structure is going to be used for? Like what?
That's my question. I just want to
that
understand.
was mine.
What the building is. This is a utility building. This is not a garage, right?
The application notes the new on the page, the backup half of yours, it notes it's a new detached utility shed.
Yes, okay, new utility building. What does it mean by new? Is there an existing one?
I mean, I don't know. It looked like a greenhouse, but could they I'm not, I don't know.
No, I
that.
mean, is there another utility building on?
All staff is aware of,
Trying to get a picture.
oh, I'm sorry, you cut out for a second.
Go ahead.
Oh, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
No, what were you saying?
Oh, no, you cut out.
I'm just trying to get a big picture here. What we are looking at, we're looking at a utility shed or, I mean, this is a, if I'm looking, this is a very big piece of property, right? From the size of this utility shed. And I'm trying to understand why this, was there some kind of reason why this utility shed is pushed so close to this other person's property? Is elevation issues, like why, I'm trying to figure out what the purpose of this building is and why they wanted to put it there where it is over this, variance.
A very good question, Ms. Weber, but that probably would be best to be answered by the petitioner or property owner.
Yeah, I think it would help to understand, why they need such a.
In terms of what the codes of Olivet decipher, if a detached structure is 120 square feet or less, we consider it a shed, tool shed
Yeah,
or common shed. Anything over 120 square feet, we consider as an enclosed garage or accessory structure. A garage does require a driveway to be built to access it. In this case, there is no driveway, so it is just it's.
And Carlos, what is the total size of this?
This one, I believe, is 389 square feet.
96.
96.
square feet.
So huge shed, not even in the same
Again,
category as a
in
shed.
accordance with the city of Olivet's values, a shed is 120 square feet or less.
100, and this is
an accessory
396.
but this is like the size of a large garage structure.
Yeah.
It could accommodate a garage, but again, the garage usually will have a driveway that leads to.
Right.
to
But
that.
in terms of size, what this building could look like on this property, it would be similar to like a two-car garage. Could we say that? That's the kind of size structure we're looking at?
It would be about a 1.5.
A
at
one-car
most.
garage,
Yeah.
1.5?
But understand
Okay,
too,
so it's a pretty,
it is, and it's well within their rights to build. However, they can't
Right.
build it within 5 feet from another property line. It would have to be within 15 feet.
15 feet.
Well,
And they
we'll,
have-
we'll wait to see what, let
Yes.
the petitioner tell us kind of what their
Perfect.
proposed use is, and, they may have a justified reason and all of this, so we can.
Right. Any other
Listen to the-
questions for Jonathan or Carlos?
Jonathan, this is Adrian. Just one quick question. If this structure were moved a few feet over to be outside of the line, more towards further into the property, would that be fully permissible and not require a variance?
It would still require due to, we would have to look at exactly, there's a 5 feet beyond the house rule that you can't have it no more than 5. Staff it would not need a variance at the point. That would be correct. That would be correct, yes. There would be other approvals probably from the Planning and Community Design Commission, but as far as the Board of Adjustment, that would be correct.
So we
Okay,
are
I mean,
just concerned of whether or not, looking at this black dot on this, whether or not it's permissible to allow it in its current position.
Right.
That's what we're asked to look at.
That's it.
Okay.
And let's hear, so Carlos, how many people are out there, for the applicant, how many people on behalf of the applicant are out there?
Chairman, I know the property owner is on, and I will move you over to panelists. I don't know if anybody else representing in contract with the property owner is on.
Okay.
We have Steve. Steve is one.
Yes,
And
okay,
Yep.
and I'm, so the property owner and the property owner's representative
Perfect.
have been transferred over. So
All
I
right,
would
we have
ask
both
if
sworn in.
they can state their names and addresses and then be sworn in.
Okay, this is Steve Kozlowski. I am attorney with offices at 2458 Old Dorset Road in St. Louis County. And I thought I had my video on, Carlos, but it doesn't look like the video is coming through. I probably did something wrong, but if you can help me push the right button here. Otherwise, I'll just go with audio. Ask you
If
start
you
your
go
video.
to the lower left-hand corner, there you go.
There you go.
And there? Okay, super. All right, now I have to get you guys
Mr.
back.
Kozlowski,
There we are. There we are. Good, very good. I'm sorry about that. Go
is
ahead.
Dr. Jacob also gonna speak?
Dr. and Mrs. Jacob may answer questions, so I suppose they should be sworn at this time as well.
Okay.
Is everyone ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You do. You do.
Thank you.
Should I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, you're on mute, Larry.
I know, there, I kept pushing it. Anyway, sorry about that. Please
Thank you.
tell us about it.
All right, Chairman Gerstein, members of the board, again, my name is Steve Kozlowski. I'm an attorney here with offices in St. Louis County. I'm representing Dr. Saji and Sunday Jacob, the owners of this property. And you've already heard a lot about the property and the variances that we're applying for. In addition to the staff documents, I also submitted documents and 4 photographs, which I hope staff has, that I'd like to go through with you very quickly before I try to answer some of the questions that have already come up in your discussions of the matter. The first one is basically a compilation and maybe the same as another staff page that you've already seen, but it shows the site plan on the top of this site plan. And then the bottom is the current elevations. And I'll return to discuss those a little bit after I make a few other comments. Then I have 4 photographs to show you a little bit more about how this property actually looks. If you could go to the next photograph, who's ever.
If you can
Doing
bear
that.
with me just 1 second and I'll get
Sure,
this.
sure.
Oh, Carlos, that one within the PDF file there's a Jacob photo 1, photo 2, photo 3, and photo 4. You got my PDF.
That's right.
This one. And also just for the board, those are the one of the packets sent over today. One of
There
the
we go.
3.
You bear with me 1 second, almost there. Apologize for the delay.
Nope, no problem.
There we go.
Okay. So I've identified this as photo number 1. This is a view from the location of the current greenhouse and the proposed storage building, looking towards the back of the house and along the property line. You'll see on the left-hand side the house of the Lamores, who are the property owners who have no objection to this variance. Next photo, please. This is just a view of the back of the house, showing the principal building, which is part of what you have to consider in approving, or the city takes into consideration in approving an additional storage building. Next photo, please. All right, so this is the current, I guess you could call it greenhouse, you can call it storage building, but this is the building that is in existence and has been in existence for many years now at this location. And this location is the same location that we're looking at for the larger and we think much more attractive storage building. To try to answer a couple of questions that came up while we have this photograph in front of us. This is not a garage. It's intended strictly as a storage building. They don't need a garage, but they do need additional storage. And for work, the typical things for storage. You know, one of the things that will be anticipated to be used using this area in the future is that they're part of the plans, and you will see it when we go back to the site plan. We don't need to go back to it now for this purpose, but There is a pool expansion that has been approved for the backyard behind the house. The photograph that you saw in photo 2 of pool plan there, and part of the storage space would be used for potentially pool equipment and supplies and so forth. And now this photograph is the last photo 4. Now this is a photograph from the Tussey Laritz property, which are the owners that are objecting, the neighbors that are objecting. So you'll see the existing greenhouse from the ground level of their property. It's shielded partly by bushes, as you can see. I do want to note, in fairness, that all of those bushes are on the Tussey Laritz property. Those are not landscaping or screening that appears currently on our property. So I hope that those photographs will give you a little bit of idea of what we're looking at here from the field. Let's just leave that photograph up if you could, Carlos, and then I'll go in and try to make a couple points and answer a couple of questions that came up during the presentation. First, as I say, the plan is to replace the existing greenhouse with a new, larger, but we think also much more attractive storage facility. It'd be made with compatible materials. We reached out to our neighbors, both of them, about the design and of the building. And in fact, we changed, you noticed from the original sketches or the original plan that was submitted to the revised plan, we added many features. Those were actually done in response to comments and input that we received from the Tusseys and the Laritzes, who are here objecting to the proposal. And we made those changes to try to make it more appealing and more acceptable to them. And we think it does fit in and is a much more attractive structure than the greenhouse, which is there at the present time. The variance so the variance sought, as has been stated, is from a side yard 15 feet to 5 feet. What's unique and extraordinary about this property? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, this property has been stated is half in Creve Coeur and a half in Olivet. Essentially most, but not all, of the house is in Creve Coeur. Some, very little of the house, and most of the backyard, or all of the backyard, I guess you would say, is in Olivet. So we have what we call a split lot situation. And Jonathan commented before that he thought the side yard setback was the same. I think he's mistaken on that. I was doing some research on that today, and I could stand corrected if Jonathan has more information. But the side yard setback actually for this property in the Creve Coeur side of it is 12 feet, as I read the ordinance. And whereas the Olivet part of it is 15 feet. Now we're still would be seeking a variance even if it were a 12-foot side yard setback requirement. But this gives you an idea of the situation, and one of the reasons that this property is unique, and because it has this split lot situation and is subject to differing and sometimes conflicting regulations between the two jurisdictions. But more to the point, and to get to the question that was raised by one or more of the board members, why can't this building be placed further into the yard? Historically, this property was a tree farm. And as you've seen many of the aerial photographs, as well as this photograph of the view from the Tussey Laritz property, there are some very substantial, I would venture to say, monarch size trees all over the back of this yard. They're planted actually in rows where they were originally planted when this operated as a tree farm. And these large old trees have established root systems. And the problem that we could encounter here and we want to avoid is somehow disturbing those root systems and destroying these monarch-sized trees, which when you saw some of the aerials before, it looks like a forest. It is so heavy and thick with trees. And of course, that's one of the most attractive features of the property, not only for the Jacobs, but also I think for the surrounding neighborhood. So the other circumstance, again, I think that needs to be kept in mind here, that is that we are replacing an existing building at the same location. Yes, we are expanding it, but we are also substantially improving the appearance of it. And in addition to that, we are going to add landscaping and screening in addition to what's already on the Tussey Laritz property on their side. So there will be essentially double screening of this new, we think, more attractive building from any view on that side of the property. Now, this issue about the bamboo has come up. That was the Jacobs have planted bamboo in other locations on the property. My understanding, and I'm not a naturalist or a bamboo expert, but I think there are different types of bamboo. I think my understanding is this is not the spreading type of bamboo, if I'm saying that correctly. But we only made that suggestion. We are open to any idea that the city, either this board or other reviewing boards may have, and will accommodate them in terms of what they think is the best available landscaping that would serve the purpose here. Our goal is to provide yet a secondary layer of screening so that even the new and improved and more attractive building would be substantially screened from view of the Tussey Laritz property. There was a question about the gutter. I don't remember, frankly, whether the elevation shows guttering or not, but of course, we don't want water just running off willy-nilly as well, and I'm sure that we could provide guttering and redirection of any runoff in a way that it doesn't impact any neighboring properties. So in short, we think this will be an improvement, not only for the Jacobs property, but actually for the neighborhood over what is there now. And we hope that the board will see it that way and will give us an opportunity to build this structure and approve the variance requested. And of course, Dr. and Ms. Jacobs are on the line and are available to answer any questions you might have.
Guys, you have any questions for them?
I do.
Ask away.
Mr. Kozlowski, in reviewing the materials that were provided, I guess after the board packets, but before the packet tonight, I noted that some of the concerns that were raised by the neighbors include the fact that the structure is 15 probably and a half foot tall versus I believe a requested amount, or actually maybe even city code, that the structure only be 15 feet tall. If it's going to house pool equipment and perhaps other gardening materials, would it be possible that we would lower the elevation of the roof down to 15 feet?
I don't see any problem with that. My understanding, and Carlos and Jonathan can correct me if I'm wrong, 15 feet is the max, but I think in that calculation, you don't include the decorative things that we have added. But regardless of that, whether I'm right or wrong about that, there's nothing magical about the height. We could certainly bring it down and get well under the 15 feet if that's a concern.
Okay, thank you. Next question I have is, I believe the neighbors expressed a concern about the sight lines. I will acknowledge that and I'm not a botanist, at least not professionally, but it looks like we have some large arborvitaes that exist on the neighbor's property.
Yes.
Was any consideration given to putting in mid-size to large arborvitaes to, I guess, further screen the existing structure such that the neighbor's sight line would roughly be consistent with the vegetation that they have actually planted themselves?
You said the existing structure?
Yes,
the proposed new
basically
structure?
on the subject parcel's property, we have about 5 feet between the property line. Would it be possible to plant mature arborvitaes in that 5 foot area, such that the neighbor's sight line would, and it looks like they have mature and immature arborvitaes, such that I guess in a number of years they're just going to see the same foliage anyways. But in the meantime, that they would see, you know, they would say, again, see the same foliage. It would just be on the neighbor's property.
Sure. No, I see no problem with that. We made a proposal with the bamboo. We're flexible to do whatever, and we're flexible to work with the neighbors. In fact, after we revised the proposal, we sent it over to the neighbors and asked them to get back to us, and we didn't hear, and that's fine. You know, obviously they have a right to be heard and they're entitled to their position, but we're happy to work with them and the city to provide whatever screening you all think is appropriate.
Thank you. And then the last question I had, and I think you answered this, and I apologize. I may have been looking at the literature while you answered this, and I apologize if I missed it. There is no gutter system currently proposed on this structure, correct?
I don't think that detail is shown, but to the extent that well, yes, we will, if it's not shown, we will do it. Absolutely.
And that potentially could deposit the water on the interior section of the lot, as opposed to off to the side, or in a worst case scenario, off to the rear towards the neighbor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we would need is some sort of French tile or some kind of a drainage system from guttering, taking it into our yard and away from anybody else's yard. I don't see any problem with doing that.
Yeah, because we are creating a little bit larger of an impermeable surface by which water will gather, and since that's in a natural location that is uphill of the neighbor, it would allow less water to permeate into the system or into the ground before the surface water would run into the neighbor. So if we could reroute some of that water into the yard to allow it to drain into the grass, and the existing mature trees hopefully would suck up a lot of that. Maybe we could keep some of that water away from the neighbor.
Absolutely. And we're agreeable to that as a condition of any approval by the board, as well as a condition relating to landscaping, however you want to write it. But, we're flexible on the landscaping. We're agreeable to making sure that we're under the 15 feet, and we're agreeable to the guttering, and having those as conditions of your approval would be perfectly fine with us.
Okay. I apologize to the board for taking all the time, but that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
This is Adrian. I just had one for you, Mr. Kozlowski. It's hard for me to tell from these pictures. I'm kind of going back to the point that you mentioned, and certainly don't want to tear down trees. Are there in fact mature trees hindering the placement of that, within a permissible area?
Well, it maybe kind of see Carlos is scrolling back here to try to kind of get us a better. Unfortunately, I didn't submit one that shows the back part of the trees. I should have done that. Maybe if we got one of the Carlos, how about that?
Just trying to understand that positioning in relation to existing trees, because I think that makes a difference.
I understand your question here. Well, let's see. Okay, so the answer is that we would not have to cut down a tree if we move the proposed storage shed 15 feet from the side yard. I don't want to suggest that. But what I am suggesting to you is that these are, I call them monarch trees. I mean, whatever you want to call them. These are substantial, old, large trees that have been there for decades. And we don't want to lose them. But you can lose a tree also by interfering with an established root system when you start digging foundations in around the roots. I'm not saying that, absolutely that's would happen, but that's what we fear. And especially given the location of the existing structure being where it is, that's the reason for placing it. That's the additional reason for, or the primary reason really for placing it where it is to make sure we don't lose any of those trees.
That helps. Thank you. I know that generally speaking, you want to not disturb 6 feet within the root system of established trees. Make sure that you shield your trees during construction so that equipment doesn't damage that root system. And I'm trying to get an understanding of how to be compliant and get everybody what they want here. I can tell the neighbor on the, I'll say, south side with the pictures of the rain runoff. I can see what they'd be sensitive to from that regard, but with guttering or even a French drain on that side of the yard, they could pick up that water before it went into their yard, probably bury some form of hatchet. I mean, that's not a topic for us to discuss, but I mean, just trying to understand the runoff system, permeable space, and trees.
Yeah.
But thank you.
If you, Carlos, could you go back to the overhead that you had in the winter that actually shows the shadows of these trees? That might, I don't want to beat a dead horse with this thing, but okay, here. All right. Yeah, this is the one I was looking for. So what you see there in dark is actually the shadows of these trees. But you see how they're placed. Remember, this was a tree farm. And so trees were uniformly placed to grow. And these are the survivors, if you will, of that. And you can see that they're located in kind of a grid manner across the backyard. And so by moving this further into that area where there are these established trees, there is the danger of coming within, I don't know if it's 6 feet or 10 feet or whatever it is of an old tree like that, but that's the risk that we're trying to avoid. I
But
hope that helps.
there is the space to do it.
No, there's space between the trees. Yeah. Oh, there's space physically. There is space between the trees, but the roots, that's another issue.
Mr. Kozlowski, are we actually the foundation of this? It looks like the current greenhouse is actually at a lesser elevation than the rest of the yard, almost like there's like a couple of railroad ties, and then you have the greenhouse down below. Is the foundation of this? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, excuse me. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, is the foundation, are we actually gonna be digging, or are we gonna be setting a concrete foundation for this premises on the existing land? Or grade, I should say.
I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a better answer for that. I don't know. I'm not sure if the details of that have been worked out. You're right that you can see from the photograph of the greenhouse, it's sitting on what looks like a slab, mostly on top of the ground. I would guess. I'm just surmising from the photograph. And by the way, you can see one of the trees that's closely to the left of that building. But I don't have a specific answer. I'm sorry about how deep it's going to be dug and so forth. But it's a larger building, so it's going to be a bigger foundation for sure.
No, I appreciate that. And if we go into a root system and that negatively affects a tree, we'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 years of decay, and that's going to eventually affect people's sight lines anyways. So we want to try and be cognizant of these existing trees because it can certainly change things. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do. Can you clarify? So you're not sure what the foundation is going to be? Is it going to be a slab like a typical garage? Or are they actually digging like a crawl space? Like what kind of disruption of the ground are we talking about here?
I do not know, Ms. Weber. I'll ask my clients if they have more information about the kind of foundation that's contemplated, if it's even been designed or drawn up yet. I don't know the answer myself. And if they have information, I guess I'll ask them to chime in. But I'm not sure that we know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be obviously a larger building. It's going to have a more complete and maybe larger foundation than what exists for the current building. But beyond that, I can't give you detail unless they know something.
This is Dr. Jacob. Mr. Chairman, I can answer that. It will be a slab. We don't want to disturb the soil. And as Mr. Kozlowski said, we really love these trees and we don't want to cause any harm to these trees. So it will be a slab. We won't be digging down.
Okay, thank you.
Is
I
that
have,
all?
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt, Larry.
You're fine.
Could you please talk a little bit about alternative plans that would be in conformity with the setbacks, and why those alternatives would not be favorable to the Jacob family, and why you're not pursuing those?
Well, the alternative, everything that we're proposing about the building is permissible with the exception of the setback. So if we could, the alternative would be to move it outside of the 15-foot setback. And the reason that we don't want to do that is for fear that I've mentioned before, that if we move this building back away from where the current building is now, which has caused no problem for the trees, but move it into the trees and into the root systems, then we fear that we will lose or could potentially lose one or more of those trees. That's what we're trying to avoid. And that's that's the reason for not moving it 15 feet further into the property.
It's hard to see that from the pictures. I don't know if others have a different vantage point, but it's really hard to tell that there would be a benefit to the trees by keeping it, in the encroached area. That would just be my question. I would need
The
more
one photograph.
evidence.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
photograph from the viewpoint of the neighbor seems, you can see a lot of blue sky. I don't see a whole forested, if you want to go back to that picture maybe.
That was my photo 4, Carlos.
Right. Yeah, the one to the right there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I see a lot of blue sky back there. I don't see a really forested, I'm sure there are lots of trees there, but I can't imagine that that building couldn't possibly be just moved a little, maybe up a little, back, a little, there's just a lot of property there, and just to accommodate 10 feet, I don't really see, what, it's hard for me to see that we're going to be disturbing anything with a slab foundation where I don't see a real concentration of trees from that viewpoint.
Have we heard everybody had made their comments for the applicant? Because we can move on and listen to whoever else had something that they would like to add, whether, I think it was the neighbor. If they could be sworn in.
Yeah, you ready?
Yep. Carlos, are they up?
Okay, 1 second, Chairman. I believe Ms. Tussey, are you on? Yes.
Hi there.
Mr.
there.
Tom is on and Mrs. Tussey is on as well.
Yes, thank you.
Hi.
And if you can state your name and address and be sworn in, and then go ahead and.
Sure, I'll start. So Tom Tussey, address is 8 Lisa Drive.
And Retta Tussey, 8 Lisa Drive.
Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. All right. I have to take Larry's steam, but go ahead.
So thank you. A few comments I'd like to make. So one is the proposed structure abuts against our primary outdoor living space. So the picture you see on your screen there to the right, you'll see right below there is a table and chairs. We actually dine there as a family quite frequently, and it is located right below this proposed structure. And this is actually taking from the view of our outdoor patio, which is probably the most used room of our house. So this view that you're looking at is by far the primary view of our living residence. So you can see that the existing greenhouse that is there, it is very difficult to see that. The proposed structure, though, would actually dominate this view. And a couple comments I wanted to make about that. The height that they are proposing is actually 15 feet 15 feet 6.5 inches. There was a comment before about the natural slope of the ground itself, and it's actually the depth of the structure is 18 feet. That height is, I assume, measured from the very beginning of that structure, and it slopes down from there. So by the time it got to that property line, it would likely be significantly higher than the 15 feet 6.5 inches that they are proposing now. Otherwise, they would actually have to dig it down below ground, which I'm confident that they are not doing. I also understand that they are intending to store a Bobcat excavator in there. So that tells me that they would be driving it in there, which also further tells me that they're not going to be lowering it below the line. So when we put that in there and we submitted some pictures there, we actually did a rendering of what it would look like, and it absolutely dominates the view of this and changes the aesthetics, and certainly does not adhere to the presence or preserving the light, air, and open space of our property. We also talked a lot about the stormwater. We definitely do have the stormwater issue now that's existed on this property ever since they constructed that principal residence. Even with a light rain, we included some pictures there. There is some significant runoff. We are concerned that that will only increase with any further construction there. You can actually see evidence of that on this existing picture. You see on that rock wall, look at those middle rocks there. Since we put that in, you can see that they are actually settling back and they are lifting up by several inches on the front as that entire area there is actually settling back in. So last thing we want there is another major big structure that is right there on that ground. In terms of the hardship, we don't see a hardship here. We have actually had the conversation with them on moving this back. We were very clear in our communications that yes, the aesthetics of a big brick wall is an awesome, but that is inconsequential to the issue that we have, which is putting it 5 feet from our property line. What we have said is what we would be okay with is moving this back to where it would fit within the compliance, both on the yard setback, but also not extending beyond 5 feet of the principal residence, which would mean that they actually had to move it 20 feet in from the property line to be able to adhere to that. With that, we are okay with the property that they are constructing. We don't love it, but we don't see that we have much of an option. What we don't see though is a hardship. In fact, the existing trees, I can't speak with authority on what makes a monarch tree. I can tell you that they're nice oak trees. There's a lot of them. They are very uniform in their lines. They are correct. And as such, you can move this property significantly further into the interior of the property line without encroaching upon any of those trees. In fact, the tree that you see to the left of the existing picture, they will be much closer to that tree with the proposed structure than they would be to any tree, even if they move this thing 20 feet towards the interior of their property. We've actually had that conversation with Mr. Jacob. And he was open that it would not be any trees that they would need to take down. I don't think there's any trees that would even be in danger. The only hardship he can come up with is if he didn't want to move his badminton net that is there by pushing this further in. And there's a lot of other areas that they can put that badminton net with on the property. And all would be able to conform within the compliance that they have here. And I think that covers everything I've got. Is there anything else that I was missing? Okay. So for us, really, it's the sight lines that we have the primary issue with. And we don't, and the runoff, and we just don't see a true hardship for being able to actually complete and stay within compliance of the setbacks.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the?
Mr. and Mrs. Tussey, I'm sorry that
That's okay.
my computer's not showing all of the language here. Conceptually speaking, if the neighbors would wholly block, so let me preface this with, it looks like you have planted a number of, and I'm going to guess arborvitaes because I think I've planted the same things and I think they're called arborvitaes, but correct me if I'm wrong. But these are plants that are going to block the neighbor in a number of years anyways. Is that roughly correct?
It is theoretically correct, yes. In practice, what we have found is that you'll see that they're not evenly spaced. The reason is because they keep dying. We think that the runoff is actually a big part of that. We planted those several years ago. They've been very difficult to grow much more than they are, and they've been dying off. So
as a fellow resident that has also planted arborvitaes that has runoff, I know exactly what you're talking about. Conceptually speaking, if we could figure out how to not inundate these plants with excess water, and that would deal with some sort of light or light grading or some sort of approach on the neighbor's property. If you didn't have to see it by virtue of the neighbor planting arborvitaes that were roughly consistent with the height that your existing arborvitaes were, how would you feel about that, this same structure?
In concept, it sounds great. In practice, I don't see it as a possibility. If you look at that tallest arborvitae that you see there in the middle, that's actually 12 feet tall. So the proposed structure that they are making is 15.5 feet. And again, that would be 15.5 feet, 20 feet in ground where it's sloping up. So it would be even higher than that on the background. So I don't see any feasibility of actually being able to block out that building
Okay.
ever.
And if they were able to reduce the height of the building, I don't know what a bobcat, and I'm just going off of what you're saying. Bobcat to me is 8.5, maybe 9 feet at its height. So I don't know what the existing opening would need to be, and then the roof pitch beyond that. But conceptually, it could be a shorter building, or I'm sorry, a less tall building, I guess. If we could, again, if the building was blocked by existing or proposed vegetation, and we shorten the building, what would your thoughts be on, and on top of that, we could redirect all of the permeable space stormwater into the lot, such that we would have a better chance of capturing and allowing that water to go into the ground rather than having surface water runoff into your existing landscape. How would you feel about that?
So I think it would potentially alleviate some of our secondary concerns, which is the existing vegetation, the runoff that we have here. It would not, though, address the primary concern of the preserving the light, air, and open space that we have now, because again, it would be a monstrous building that we located right next to where we are all the time. If there was a significant and unique hardship that was preventing them from moving a building, absolutely, we would want to be neighborly and see if they could accommodate that with a building that was not quite as high. There just isn't a hardship that exists.
Okay. No, and part of me is just trying to see where there may be opportunities for us to consider different approaches here. So thank you.
Any other questions for them? No? Carlos, is there anybody else that would wish to speak on their behalf, on anyone's behalf?
Chairman, I do have two other residents off of Lisa. If they want to speak, if you can just show your hand and I can transfer you over. All right, I am promoting Sean Rochester of 00 Lisa Drive.
He'd be sworn in when he comes on.
Give me 1 second here. Okay, Mr. Rochester, you should be on.
Okay. See me now?
Sir.
Give your name and address and then get sworn in, sir.
Hi, my name's Sean Rochester, live at 0 Lisa Drive.
Sir, do you swear to, that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I'm just going to be real brief. I just wanted to, put on the record that I think it's important that Olivet try to follow its regulations. And so in this case, if there is no hardship that the applicant is proving, then I think Olivet should honor that, recognize that, and act accordingly. That's it. Thank you.
I got it. That was good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else, Carlos?
1 second here, just to make sure. Okay, Chairman, I believe we're good to go.
All right, so we're closing the public portion of this meeting, and we're going to talk amongst ourselves again, and then make a motion. So who would like to go first? I'll pick somebody. David, you want to talk?
Fair enough. I see some positions on both sides. I think that if they just move the structure in a number of feet, I guess it's 10 feet, I guess. They're not obligated to put any sort of vegetation. The neighbors are still going to see it. We're not going to address any sort of stormwater runoff from that structure. Whether or not the neighbors will be, better served or less served by that. I haven't been in their second story bedroom, which I can see from some of the pictures. They're going to look directly at this. I don't know, so I can't say that. Part of me on the other side says that if we can allow this to a certain degree, if we say that we're allowing to be positioned a certain number of feet in, but not all the number of feet or in its proposed location, that we may be able to implement vegetation controls or vegetation requirements. And Carlos, please correct me if I don't have that authority, but and or stormwater management controls, which may address some of the secondary concerns for the neighbor. I speak that as a downhill resident of plenty of new construction around me. I can see that concern. So I see things on both sides. Very easily could it be moved in, but at the same time, could we also accomplish some other mechanisms or goals that I think this board has also sought, and I think the city overall seeks to accomplish, in rendering these decisions. So,
Carlos, what's the number of square feet this structure needs to be moved in to avoid any variance?
There's two parts. The overall distance, the setback distance.
Distance, yes.
It would be based on a minimum of 15 feet, but administratively, it has to be extended. And if you can see my cursor right here, I know it's small in there. It can't extend more than 5 feet out. And that's a little hard to kind of figure out whether that dimension is about 17 or 18 feet in there. So that would, kind of line in here. So this 18 feet would have to be shifted roughly about 12 feet north of that, of its current placement.
Okay. And there is room to do it.
Well, I mean, yes, based on the site plan, there's all this area here.
Right.
Yeah, now that's not taken into consideration because the site plan doesn't show, it does show me the topography, but not anything regarding the trees.
Gotcha.
That might be these guys here, and I'm not sure because there's like a section missing.
What about the height?
The height is limited not to exceed 15 feet.
So are they over that, or that's what they're at?
Right now, under the plan that has been submitted for the board review, it's a little, looks like it's a half a foot to 3/4 of a foot higher than what would be permitted by code. I mean, in terms of what can be approved administratively, the way the ordinance is written is that they can petition the Planning and Community Design Commission for an additional height beyond the 15 feet. The commission is not the Board of Adjustment. They don't have to provide some type of hardship or so. The commission, the Plan Commission views it more from an aesthetic or architectural view, where they'd be justifying that height in terms of whether there's a proportion, an architectural element or something like that. It's different than what this board does. You're just looking at property and unique conditions.
But we could have them move it to 12 feet to make sure it's not encroaching, as well as limit well, we don't have to limit the 15 feet because it's already, I mean, we just state it because it's already said that that's the most you can go, right? 15 feet.
That's the building height.
Right.
Okay. In terms of the setback,
The setback, we have to move it 12 feet.
an additional 12 feet to the 5 that they're showing. So you're looking
Right.
somewhere around 17 to 18 feet.
Gotcha.
Jonathan, I'm not sure we ever got I don't believe we ever measured it specifically because that wasn't the request.
I just measured it. It's around 18 feet. If you see where your mouse is right now, that square just to the left of you,
Mhm.
that's about 5 feet from the house. So the house is the bigger square above it. That square is about 5 feet. So from that square to the property line is roughly 18 feet. So it would be 18 feet.
So it can be done. It's just a question is if there's trees right there.
And I think the tree indications, now if you look over to the far left, it says remove tree. See that dot over here?
Yeah.
Okay, these dots around the property must be the trees. And actually where they're putting this building is closer to trees than if they actually moved more towards in the center, toward the center of their property.
That's what I was looking at.
So I feel personally, I understand that they want this building where it is. And that's their, that's where they want it. I just don't see any hardship here to move it out of the setback, within the boundaries that it should be in.
Good.
It looks like it would be moving it away from those trees that are to the left and the right of the existing drawing. I don't see any trees out here if you moved it, let's just say up, whatever direction that is.
Right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
Moving it there, and I think no matter where this building is, they're going to have to do water management with it. So whether it's, where it is now, or even if they push it back, they're still going to have to properly divert the water. I know what this is like because when I bought the house that I'm in now, they put this giant garage in our yard. I am in the middle of a hill. I have a lower area to my one side and a higher area to the left of me. And this garage is like a giant rock. And the water is coming down the hill and it's going to one side or the other, and it's causing a lot of water problems. So it doesn't matter, I think, where this building is. There's going to be some kind of directed water runoff and probably into this neighbor's yard. So that's going to be something they'll have to.
Well,
deal
gutters
with
that we had
going
talked, is that something that we require, or it's up to the builder?
Doesn't a roof have to have a gutter, a pitched roof?
That may be part of the building code at some way, shape, or form. I could not tell you what the code is on that one. But regarding stormwater, the city adopted a policy if they were adding a new 400 square feet, which they're slightly under, that's when our stormwater review would kick in. So actually, they would just need to, if they had gutters, let's just pretend like they do, they would just have up to a 10-foot from a property line is what they would be regulated for at that point. So
Omar, Adrian, anything to add?
I'm not seeing any practical difficulties here according to the code. I don't have enough evidence here, or there's not. I think to Dawn's and others' points about the trees, it does look like this existing structure, based on the evidence that we have, is actually closer to the trees. So it's actually, the structure itself is creating the problem, just based on the way they presented it. So I just need more. I don't think there's enough here to grant the variance.
Yeah, there
Oh,
weren't
yeah,
any evidence of where trees are that would be impeding.
I would agree with what Omar said, kind of exactly. I mean, it seems to be a problem for the neighbor to the south, and really it'd be nice, but we can't weigh in if there was a French drain system there, or some different type of water management system. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
Right.
Is this a hardship? It's not a hardship. It's not irregular. I don't see what we would have grounds to grant this for.
Okay,
Right.
I think we've done it. So we need a motion. Somebody needs to make a motion that we grant the variance. We can make it that simple.
I'll make the motion.
And that we approve the plans as is, I guess would be. Yeah, that would be the motion, then we say no.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
For the
Yeah.
sake of formality, again, the motion, the requested motion is on the screen and is on your packet, and I would recommend just to read it as listed. That just ensures the city's covered.
Don, do you have that?
Oh, do you want me to read the motion?
Yes, please.
There's a motion to grant a variance for the required 15-foot side yard setback along the south property line as required under 400.1592.b.4.d2 side yard, being part of Article 16 accessory structures and uses of Chapter 400 zoning regulations of Title 4. Land use, is that enough?
Yeah, I need a second.
Second.
Perfect. David, would you like to take the vote, please?
I'll go
Take
ahead.
the vote or
and
vote?
I'll
Last
I'll
time
vote.
Carlos read it.
I'll go ahead and.
Oh, Carlos, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Mr. Hartman,
Nay.
Ms. Weber,
Nay.
Mr. Zobel,
I'd be more willing to vote in favor if we had additional information on offsets for the neighbors. But under the current conditions, I think I need to vote nay.
Mr. Malley,
Nay.
Mr. Gerstein.
Nay.
The motion fails 0-5. So the variance is denied.
And Carlos, sorry about that, guys. What do you have to add for us?
Just a couple of things before we wrap up the meeting, if you can bear with us. I believe Jonathan has provided a set of meeting minutes from our last meeting. I thought I had the date.
I'll note real quick that just because we have two board members here, you are voting, you're just acknowledging that you are in receipt of the meeting minutes from, I believe it's June 12th. You're in receipt of the meeting minutes before you, so that you've received them.
Got it.
Yes.
June 17th, I'm sorry.
And then we have a meeting. What's coming up, right? Next month?
Correct. Our next scheduled meeting date, and the board traditionally meets on the second Thursday of each month. We have a scheduled meeting for posting for the November 12th agenda. I believe there are 2 items, Jonathan.
I have it.
Yes, sir. We have a.
And at
front
that
yard
point, that's all
setback.
we can relate to the board
Okay, yeah.
because we
so,
can't
yeah.
inform, beyond.
We have
in
2.
advance. So 2 items, and then December 10th would be the next follow-up meeting. Regarding meeting events, City Council traditionally hosts a work session on the first Tuesday of every month. They will be hosting their November work session, I believe. Well, no, it won't be next week. It'll be the following week. And then the council meetings are the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. Of course, next Tuesday is their second meeting of the month. And the Plan Commission meets on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays. A couple of COVID-19 info updates. All the parks, playground facilities and restrooms are open to the public. It is required, of course, that you wear a mask and follow proper social distancing. All the city facilities are open and accessible to the public. That includes courts, which they've been doing virtually. Our council meetings, our Plan Commission meetings have also been being conducted virtually via Zoom. Remember, Gilman Road is closed, just a little south of Hilltop. It will be closed for, I believe, another 2 weeks before it gets reopening. They've also closed the sidewalk access, at least for the next week or so. They're replacing it's a culvert, but that bridge that goes over the creek in there, and that is part of a federal grant in which the grant itself, I believe, is paying 75% of the overall cost for the road improvements on Gilman. After the culvert replacement, they will be milling the road all the way up to Olive, installing new sidewalks on one side of the road, but it kind of jags in different areas in there. The Ashby Road Bridge, which is just north of the county PEP facility, that should open by year's end. We haven't gotten this. It's a county road, and we haven't received a specific date of when that opening will occur. Of course, this is our 90th anniversary, and there's been a variety of events prior to COVID, but the city did place a video clip celebrating the city's 90th year on its website. I encourage everybody to take a look if you have a chance. Regarding some city events, I believe there will be a Zoom with the mayor providing an update regarding the city's master parks plan, and they'll be talking about the new community center. And that would be scheduled, and I'll check with our council member when he speaks, but I believe that is next Wednesday. And then Jonathan has coordinated the November Zoom with the mayor, in where she has a representative for the Missouri Botanical Garden to speak in regards to rain gardens. Other city events, again, this weekend is National Prescription Take Back Day. So here at the City Center at 1140 Olive, you can drop off prescription drugs. And then on the Saturday of November 7th, here at the City Center at 1140 Olive, again, the city will be hosting an electronic waste, paper shredding, and prescription drop-off event. And then fall leaf pickup should be starting on the week of November 3rd. And the city is divided into 3 sections, and the sections are accessible via our website. And then just regarding some of the development updates going on, I-170 Gateway development, which is now known as the Olive Crossing. The Metropolitan Sewer District right now has kind of oversight of the site as they're installing 2 major relief lines, one going north towards Hilltop, another one going south along parallel with the 170 that will turn into the city. Those projects are restricting any construction on that site until they're complete. And again, those are being conducted by the Metropolitan Sewer District. They're not part of the development. On the old City Hall facility that was at 9473 Olive, they are building what they call the Oliver. It's an apartment complex, 4-story building with a side building for retail. Currently, the footings and the foundations are being placed. City's also working with the Great Rivers Greenway for the extension of the Centennial Greenway. So that is Just on the U City side, east of I-170, you'll see the Shaw Park extension. That will eventually go underneath I-170 along the Olive crossing of the new I-170 development, have a cross Olive on Hilltop, which is the second light in towards the Chevys, run along Chevys, and then take a north between Chevys and CVS and go along the abandoned railroad corridor that used to be there, all the way north of where the Murphy corporate headquarters are. And then it will head eastward, eventually connecting to Indian Meadows Park there at Dealman and Napoleon. And then we'll run along the park and connect to the new community center off of Warson.
Nice.
Easy Storage is where the vacant site that used to be an old Burger Chef Hardee's. It was where we had the big dirt mound for quite some time. They're still committed to developing the site. It's been pretty slow, and they've had some issues regarding COVID, and then now with the limitations on building materials and supplies, it's kind of slowed up the process, but they're still looking to do that. Will be a 5-story indoor storage facility, but the first level of the 5 stories will have retail facing Olive. And then at the corner, at the southeast corner of Dealman and Olive, which is address is 9398 Olive Boulevard, known as Olivet 66, that service station, catty corner from the McDonald's, is going to be raised, and a Firestone is being developed on that site. We're awaiting closing of the properties, but the drawings for the development are available on our website if anybody has any interest. And then the old Ponderosa site, which is a vacant site at 9514 Olive Boulevard, again, somewhat across the street from the old City Hall site. That is being developed to a 1.5 story, really, commercial building, approximately about 15,000 square feet. We're calling it the Plant Haven Center. The lady that would operate the seasonal garden center at the bowling alley next door, they're actually purchased the old Ponderosa site. They're building a multi-tenant commercial facility, and she will be anchoring the eastern portion of the building, and will have a year-round outdoor gardening center along with a gift store in that site.
Right.
So be glad to answer any specific questions, and if not, I'll let Councilman Carl add in, and Jonathan also, if there's anything else.
Anybody have anything for questions for Carlos first before I start? Nope, doesn't seem like it. Okay, so absolutely would like to welcome our new members. I hope after tonight, if this was your first meeting, that you're still interested. But I think I did, excuse me, want to say that you functioned just perfectly tonight. I thought everyone did a great job.
Yes.
So, excuse me, I swear I don't have COVID. Economic development, as Carlos just went through all our building going on, this is our economic development. I'm, as I said to a few people before the meeting started, we have concentrated on economic development for the last few years to try to bring revenue into the city under the view that we do everything else we do takes money. Okay, and I think you've seen that we're being somewhat successful in that area, with no small thanks to the staff on this call. Okay, but I just want to point that out, and that lets us, you know, do other things. And also, I want to point out that we are not in any kind of a severe economic bind right now because of the pandemic. Basically, because the city has taken a conscious effort to curate our revenue mix between sales tax and property tax. And I think that's somewhat important, you know, when you guys think about it. And that is, so for instance, we approved the expansion of the Olive Crossing development because it went from being about 85% sales tax revenue from that development to about 65% sales tax revenue, rest being coming from additional property tax. And that helps smooth it out during this time. People right now heavily relied on sales tax, cities are experiencing way more difficulty than we are. And, you know, knock on wood, we hope to stay that way. But I just want to bring that up. And then that's letting us continue with things like the park master plan, these other things that, as I say, we look at the money allows us to do the things we want, right? Like parks and those kinds of things. So I just want to put that out there. Finally, Carlos talked about the video. He talked about Great Eaters Greenway. One final thing, the Turkey Trot, the Olivet Turkey Trot is virtual this year. I would like to point out that it is one way you can contribute locally, I believe, to COVID relief, because it is a local food pantry. And that's exactly where the people that are struggling in the pandemic are going for food. So it's just, I think that, you know, if you can participate, it would be great. If you can get others to participate, it would be great. I know it's not as much fun as getting together bright and early on Thanksgiving morning, but let's go. All right, that's all I have. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be glad to field them.
Chairman, one quick thing. Omar, Don, and even Adrian, we have you, and you guys did an excellent job. Understand, you know, Jonathan and our role is always to represent just the facts, just how the city's adopted, so we don't take any offense in there. You guys ask good questions. Our hope is always that based on how you guys respond and the questions you ask, help us with the next group, and either they comply or they find out that it's better off just to go ahead and comply, or they'll determine to pursue, and a lot of the times they'll reduce it. Just like the infield Ellsbury one, you know, they did bring that whole thing back, and so it was only that wedge that was beyond the setback. But when we started off, that thing was even closer in there. So again, I think you guys asked good questions and made them justify the counts. And the same with 548 Warson in there. You guys got a difficult job. It's not easy. And then if there's anything that Jonathan or I can do, or questions or so, always let us know. Please feel free to give us a contact. We really appreciate you guys volunteering on this.
Will do. Thank you very much. I
Thank
thought
you.
that was great. It was very professionally done and very well organized. Thank you for dropping off the paperwork, and just a very good process you have. So kudos to you guys for doing that.
Great, thank you.
One of the things you'll find out is our city has a great staff.
Thanks.
All right, Chairman.
All right, we'll call this we'll close this meeting until next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.